Hi there, Mr. Evans here. This video looks at the global strategy from Bartlett and Ghoshal. Defined Bartlett and Ghoshal in several videos. If you want to go back to get more of an understanding, they're in the previous videos in the playlist. But essentially, Bartlett and Ghoshal's theory is that multinational companies operating more than one market can pick a number of strategies, and the strategies that they choose will depend on how much pressure there is to customize products for local needs, and how much pressure there is to reduce costs, i.e. through global integration of a supply chain, maximizing economies of scale, so doing as much production in one geographical location as possible in order to fully benefit from economies of scale. So the global strategy is the one we're looking at in this video, where those economies of scale are particularly important and pressure for local responsiveness is less important. So we need to exploit our economies of scale on a global scale, but the products can be standardized. This is typically used for things like commodities, industrial goods and low-priced commercial goods. So a couple of examples, petrol would be an example of a product where you would want to produce as much as possible in one place, because the product is the same whether you go to the UK, France, the UAE, the States. You know, it's one product that doesn't need to be adapted for local markets. Okay, equally industrial goods like JCB and those kind of huge elements of plant. There's loads of construction that goes on in the UAE. A crane in the UAE looks the same as it does in London, as it does in Jakarta. Okay, it's the same product, and so it makes sense, if we're selling them on a global scale, to be producing them in one factory and making the most of those economies of scale, getting driving down our local suppliers, etc., in terms of price, so we can produce at the lowest possible cost. We're going to have centralized decision making in this strategy, because the headquarters is where we're operating, and we are trying, or we might not be manufacturing there, but at least the headquarters is determining the global supply chain in order to maximize those economies of scale, produce at the lowest possible cost. However, we are going to lack responsiveness to local needs. So we could look at BP. I've mentioned petrol already as an example of a product where you'd have quite high cost pressure. We want to produce our petrol at the lowest possible costs, and then we can maximise our profit margins. To do that, we benefit from economies of scale as much as we can. Other products that might follow this strategy, like steel. Okay, steel is the same in one country as it is in another. There's a lot of cost pressure on steel at the moment, and a lot of pressure to reduce the cost that you can produce your steel to the lowest possible cost, because I'm going to buy it off the lowest cost producer. Equally, drugs, medicines, they, at the moment they're not particularly individualized for people. You can produce the same medicine on a mass scale, benefit from global economies of scale, and produce at the lowest possible cost, and that either allows you to increase your profit margin or sell at the lowest price. Coffee beans, equally, we can produce them in one place and then ship them across the world. Another example might be cheap clothing, for example, like plain t-shirts or vests that aren't customized for any particular market, but if we can produce them at the lowest possible cost, the clothing market is very competitive. If we don't need to adapt these products to local needs, let's produce them at the lowest possible cost, benefit from economies of scale, and then we can either sell at a competitive price and attract customers from our competitors, or we benefit from a higher profit margin. So these are the benefits of a global strategy. Of course, if the product needs to be adapted at all, it's not appropriate.